Rain ticked against the corrugated tin roof like a clock that refused to sleep. Each drop marked another second James could not reclaim, another moment that slipped away as he stood on the threshold of a small farmhouse at the town's edge. In his hand trembled a single sheet of paper, creased, fragile, yet heavier than stone. It was only a few hurried lines, scrawled by the woman who had taught him hope. "I love you, James. But I must leave, for your safety." The words were at once tender and brutal, a confession and a sentence. Why would she, his light, his compass, the one who had illuminated his darkest hours, choose to step willingly into shadow? Who had tightened the cord of this cruel, silent conspiracy? And would James find her before the night consumed every road ahead? Rituals of escape. James had always clung to a private ritual. After long hours of boardrooms and balance sheets, he drove away from the steel and glass of the city toward the fields that stretched at the town's border. The roads grew narrow, muddy, unpredictable. Fireflies glimmered like tiny beacons on the edges of the ditch. At the end of that road waited two Diep, her world pressed under a tin roof, dried herbs hanging like quiet guardians along the beams. Sometimes she met him with tea, other times with a smile that dissolved the weight of his day. She came from scarcity, he came from plenty. And people, as they often do, filled the space between them with what they did not understand. At first, it was only whispers at the market, "She's not worthy of a CEO." Then mutters at the bus stop, "He's blinded by pity." Later, notes slipped under her door, "She's destroying his career." The words were like paper cuts, small, sharp, almost invisible. But 1,000 of them could bleed a person dry, words that bite deeper than silence. Too Diep tried to brush them aside. She planted seeds in the misty dawn and washed soil from her hands at dusk. She reminded herself she was stronger than rumors. Yet the insults seeped into her quiet hours: parasite, gold digger, desperate girl clinging to a man. The harshest blow fell one afternoon at the market. From the mouth of a stranger, sweetened with a smile but sharpened like a hidden blade, came the words, "He'll tire of charity soon." That night, she walked home without hearing the crickets. The words echoed louder, no matter how hard she tried to bury them. She thought of James, gentle James, who always remembered to bring extra seeds, who tightened loose hinges, who never forgot to ask whether she had eaten. She loved him for that tenderness. But tenderness, she feared, was the easiest thing to break. Threats in the dark, then came the calls. The first at midnight, then again, then again. By the fourth, a voice, steady, rehearsed, spoke with surgical cruelty. "Leave him, or we'll leave him with nothing." The line went dead. Silence filled the room until it shrank around her. 2 mornings later, she found a package of seedlings ripped open on her doorstep, soil spilling like a wound. A delivery she had expected was suddenly cancelled, the only explanation scribbled on a curt note: "We must reconsider our partnership." On social media, whispers became rumors. The CEO is misusing company time, bending rules, blurring boundaries. Absurd accusations, but like mold, they thrived wherever the air was damp with suspicion. Too Deep told herself she would not trouble James with this. His world was already heavy with contracts, meetings, and the polished smile he wore in boardrooms. She would not add her fears to his ledger, but fear respects no schedule. It arrives when it wants, through creaking floorboards, falling stones in a water barrel, or the shrill ring of another anonymous call repeating the same ultimatum: leave him, or ruin him. She could already see how the lie might grow, pulling at the loose threads of his name until everything unraveled. It was no longer just about her. They were circling him now, the goodbye he never heard. One evening, James arrived with a small bag of roasted coffee beans from her favorite roastery. "You'll like this," he said, trying to coax a smile. They talked about weather. About beans. About nothing at all. Too Deep studied his face under the lamp. Gratitude twisted inside her into something almost painful. She wanted to tell him everything, wanted to hand him her fears and watch him dismantle them the way he fixed broken tools, slowly, patiently, with steady hands. But more than anything, she wanted him safe. She wanted his work untarnished by her shadow. That night, she could not sleep. Instead, she wrote. Rain began after midnight, gentle at first, then steady. Each word she wrote was a battle, tender but decisive. Honest but not hopeless. James, I love you. You gave me courage where I was only stubbornness, calm where I was only storm. Forgive me, I will leave for a time. Please don't search for me, not yet. This is to protect you, and all you've built. Trust me, just for a little while. She folded the note, tucked it where he would find it, packed a small bag, 2 changes of clothes, a sweater, a bar of soap wrapped in brown paper, and a photograph of the 2 of them drenched and laughing in the rain. Then she slipped into the night, while the world still slept. The empty house. By dawn, James turned off the highway onto the small road leading to the farm. He carried a mental list of mundane matters to discuss. A new tarp for the herb bed, a fence that needed repair, even the trivial but pressing question of whether she preferred her coffee with honey or sugar. He opened the door. The house was too quiet. Her apron hung on a hook. The hook beside it was bare. A cop sat upside down on a folded cloth, as if abandoned mid-routine. Then he saw the paper. He read it once, twice, sat down because the floor itself seemed to tilt beneath him. Rain hammered the roof harder, a merciless metronome counting the seconds of her absence. He searched, because that's what people do when their hearts are lost. Her aunt's house. The neighbor's yard, the market, the bus stop, even the small inn above the bakery with its cracked window. He asked strangers about a woman with a green bag, short hair, soft voice. Some nodded vaguely. Others shook their heads. Every lead dissolved into a door gently closed in his face. By afternoon, he sat in his car again, the note trembling in his hands, so fragile, yet impossibly heavy. Circles and maps. Let her breathe, the voice startled him. An old man stood by the driver's window, the neighbor who repaired bicycles and always knew the weather before the radio did. Birds can't sing in cages. Even gilded ones, the man said. She's not a bird, James replied hoarsely. She's a map, the man nodded. Then trust the map knows the way. He paused, eyes narrowing toward the horizon. But beware. Pressure is circling. Better to break the circle before chasing the center. The words lodged in James's mind. Pressure. Circling. He thought of the contract his company had just secured, the kind rivals might resent. He thought of the cancelled deliveries, the shredded seedlings, the anonymous messages. None of it random. The timing was too precise. Rumors spread like sparks on dry paper, but sparks needed someone to strike the match. That night, he stayed at the farm. He couldn't sleep in her bed, so he sat on the porch, watching rain turn to mist. Beneath a flower pot, he spotted a folded bus schedule. A circle had been drawn faintly around one late-night border route, the pencil pressed twice as if by a shaking hand. He picked it up, held it in the gray light. She had asked him not to look for her. And he wouldn't, not directly. But he could follow the circle around her, from whispers to war. The next morning, James was at the office. Not at his desk, but in the security department. He requested records of late-night calls to the farm. Calm, discreet. No alarms. Only truth. He revisited business partners who had abruptly cancelled meetings. In quiet tones, he asked why. Relieved by his politeness, one admitted they had received anonymous warnings, whispers of audits, scandals, trouble ahead. No proof, yet pressure doesn't need proof to work. James took notes. Names, times. Each entry became a coordinate. He returned to the farm at dusk, repaired a broken hinge, gently replanted seedlings as if they were wounded birds. He brewed coffee and, out of habit, set aside a second cup. "This isn't over," he said aloud to the empty room. "We're not broken, just stretched." Memories of their first meeting grounded him. Her sleeves rolled to the elbow, her laugh when he slipped in the mud, her indifference to his title. She had shown him that generosity doesn't come from abundance but from scarcity, how someone with little could still give half. That memory did not weaken him. It focused him, drawing the battle lines. In the days that followed, James pieced the puzzle together. The calls traced back to disposable phones bought near a logistics hub linked to a rival subcontractor. The anonymous notes online carried repeated phrases recycled across obscure forums. Designed to look like gossip. Designed to destabilize. He did not rage. He recorded. He knew the difference between fire and light. And he chose light. On the 7th night since the note, the rain stopped. James stood by the fence, inhaling the cleansed air. He slipped the bus schedule and her note into his pocket, felt their weight, and whispered into the empty yard. "Too deep, I hear you. I won't chase you. Instead, I'll clear the path." The next day, he met with lawyers specializing in harassment, quiet ones, who understood discretion. He spoke with his communications director, instructing her to craft responses not with noise or defensiveness, but with calm facts and measured resolve. He reassured business partners directly, thanking even those who had panicked, and he asked security for one more detail: a truck spotted idling near the farm on 2 consecutive nights. Each step was methodical, patient, like a weaver pulling threads together, and always, he kept one chair at the table empty. One light on. Water on the stove, not as a shrine to grief, but as a promise of the ordinary life they had begun to build. Because the truth she had taught him was this: love is not spectacle. It is repetition. Hinges fixed. Grocery lists. Seed trays. Showing up after work even when it rains. Love is not a cage. It is a room. To be continued. The night grew lighter. The path ahead was not easy, but it was visible. And James stepped onto it. For now, the map was incomplete. A penciled circle on a folded bus schedule, a handful of phone numbers tied to shadowy rivals, a network of whispers feeding on fear. The question remained: would James trace these faint lines to where they led, without breaking his promise to let her breathe? And in the shadows behind the rumors, who was pulling the strings that threatened both love and livelihood? Stay with us. In the next chapter, we follow whether the road from pressure to peace can truly be walked, before the circle closes in.